All right, so today we're going to be taking a bit of a deep dive into something I think will be pretty interesting. We're talking road construction,
Okay.
but not just like, the image we all have, right? The orange cones, potholes, traffic jams. We actually dug into RoleCatcher's career guide, Road Construction Worker.
Okay.
And honestly, there's way more to it than meets the eye.
Interesting.
Yeah. For instance, did you know those workers are involved in a lot more than just laying down asphalt?
I guess I never really thought about it in detail.
Right. Like you think road construction, you think asphalt, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
But this guide highlights all this other stuff like earthworks, drainage, even safety feature installation.
Oh, that's a good point. You don't really consider all the prep work and everything else that has to go into it.
Exactly. And that kind of leads into another thing that surprised me. It's not just one job, you know?
What do you mean?
Well, the guide lays out these like really clearly defined career stages. You can start, I don't know, entry level, but then there's all this room to grow, take on more responsibility.
So it's not a dead-end job, is what you're saying.
No, not at all. It's like you can work your way up to senior positions, even leadership roles.
Now, that's pretty cool,
Yeah.
especially if you're someone who likes to see that kind of progression in a career.
Totally. And here's something else that I think is really interesting, especially for anyone listening who might be like career-minded.
Yeah.
A lot of the skills you pick up in road construction, they're like transferable. They're valuable beyond just that field.
Give me an example.
Okay, so think about it. You're operating heavy machinery, right? You have to follow strict safety protocols, problem solve on the fly, all while working as part of a team.
Right, I see what you're saying.
Those are useful in a lot of different jobs.
Yeah, for sure. It's like you're not just building a road, you're building a skill set.
Exactly. And speaking of building, the guide also touched on how technology is changing the game, even in road construction, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, absolutely. That's happening everywhere, right?
Right, like what did they say?
Well, it's everything from the actual machinery they're using to the software for planning and execution. It's getting pretty high tech.
So what does that mean for someone who's already in the field or even thinking about it?
It means staying updated is more important than ever.
So even in a field that seems, I don't know, kind of traditional, you constantly have to be learning new things.
Pretty much. It's evolving all the time.
Wow. And I guess that plays into the next thing I wanted to bring up, which is just how much variety there is within road construction itself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like the guide was talking about all these different specializations, bridge construction, asphalt paving, and each one is so different.
They really are. And each one has its own, unique set of challenges and rewards.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. So like, what would you say is the difference between, say, bridge construction versus something like asphalt paving? Besides the obvious, like, material difference.
Well, with bridges, you need a really solid understanding of structural engineering, load bearing, all that. Plus, you're often working at heights, over water. It's a whole different ballgame.
So it's not just paving a road, you're building something that has to withstand huge forces,
Yeah.
potentially for decades.
It's high stakes. Yeah. No, it definitely is. It's a whole different level of expertise. And speaking of expertise, that actually reminds me of something else from the guide that I thought was really interesting.
Okay, what's that?
It turns out the job outlook for road construction workers is surprisingly positive.
Really? Is it construction like one of those fields that goes up and down with the economy?
Yeah, that could be true for the broader construction industry, but road construction,
Hmm.
it tends to be a bit more stable.
Why is that?
Well, think about it. The population keeps growing, cities get bigger, and what do they always need? More roads, new highways, all that infrastructure. So the demand is kind of built in.
That makes sense. So it's kind of future-proof in a way.
In a way, yeah. And especially now, with so much emphasis on infrastructure projects, there's going to be a growing need for skilled workers.
So someone listening to this who, maybe likes working with their hands, not afraid of a little hard work, enjoys seeing like tangible results of their labor, road construction could be a real option.
I think that's a great way to put it. And like we were talking about before, it's not just manual labor these days. There's the whole technology aspect too, which actually brings us to RoleCatcher and how they kind of try to help you navigate all this.
Right, yeah, so let's talk about that a bit. What's their approach?
Well, they've got a bunch of features, but one that I thought was cool is this browser extension called, get this, RoleCatcher.capture.
RoleCatcher.capture. What even, okay, I gotta ask, what is that?
So, you know how you're always hunting for jobs online, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a million tabs open. You're trying to remember where you saw what.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
It is. So with this extension, you can basically just save any job posting from any site you're on. It's all organized right there in RoleCatcher.
Oh, that's actually pretty slick, especially nowadays when you have to be on so many different job boards and websites.
Totally. And speaking of which, the guy also mentioned how tech is changing the application process itself,
Yeah.
which I know can be a pain.
Yeah, those automated systems, the ones that filter resumes, it's like a black hole. You submit something and then dot nothing.
Exactly, like you're talking to a robot.
Mm-hmm.
Those ATS systems, the applicant tracking systems,
Yeah.
they can be brutal. But that's something else that RoleCatcher tries to help with through its AI-powered resume builder.
Hold on, AI powered. So it's not just about making the resume look nice, it's about making sure it actually gets seen by a human.
Exactly. It's wild. The AI actually analyzes the job descriptions, figures out the key skills and keywords those systems are looking for, and then helps you tailor your resume to hit those points.
So less about tricking the system, more about speaking its language.
Exactly. And the guide was really emphasizing how important this is nowadays, especially in a competitive field like road construction.
Makes sense, yeah. You need every advantage you can get. Okay, but let's switch gears for a sec and talk about the actual work environment itself. What's it really like being out there on a road crew? The guide touched on teamwork, but I'm curious what that looks like day to day.
That's a great question, and you're right. The guide did highlight that. It's almost never a solo thing, you know. You're part of a team working towards this shared goal, and that comes with its own set of demands.
What do you mean?
Well, communication has to be on point. You have to be able to coordinate with everyone else, adapt if something changes, think on your feet.
So it's not just about knowing how to operate the equipment, it's about that human element too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you could have the most skilled equipment operators in the world, but if they can't work together, communicate effectively.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. And that actually kind of reminds me of, what was it? Oh, yeah, the guide also mentioned networking, which I thought was interesting.
Networking in road construction.
That's what I thought.
Hmm.
But they stressed how important it is.
Huh. I guess I never really considered it either. But it makes sense when you think about it.
So how does that even work? Because I think of networking and it's like suits, business cards, stuffy conferences. That doesn't really fit with the image of, being out there on the open road.
Right. And I think traditionally, a lot of it did happen through more, like, what are those called?
Union halls?
Yeah, union halls, job fair, stuff like that. But like with everything else, the digital world is changing things.
You mean like online? Exactly. Forums, social media groups, all that. It's actually becoming a really valuable way for people in the industry to connect.
So even in a field like this, building that online presence, it's not just about like posting selfies. It's actually important for your career.
It really is. It's about sharing your knowledge, learning from others, finding out about opportunities you might not hear about otherwise.
Wild. It really goes to show technology is impacting everything.
No doubt.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. Started with potholes, ended up talking about AI and networking.
It's been a journey. Hopefully a pretty eye-opening one for anyone listening.
I think so. It's easy to just drive on a road and not really think twice about it. But there's a whole lot that goes into building them, maintaining them. And honestly, it's way more complex and interesting than I think most people realize.
Absolutely. It's a hidden world in a way.
Definitely. And who knows, maybe someone listening to this will be inspired to check it out, maybe even consider a career in road construction.
There you go. You never know where inspiration's going to come from.
Well said. And on that note, this has been The Deep Dive, signing off until next time. Drive safe, everyone.